Gaza death toll soars to more than 11,300 as the Israel-Hamas conflict enters a sixth week.
In Israel, some say they are being silenced for showing support to the people of Gaza.
The EU is failing to meet the production capacities needed to provide Ukraine with enough ammunition in its war against Russia.
President Emmanuel Macron pledges 50 million euros to those in France devastated by days of rain and flooding.
An explosion lights up the night sky in the northern Gaza Strip, where the Israeli military says it's targeting Hamas fighters. The IDF says it's taken control of large parts of Gaza City and areas in the north, as well as Hamas-run government institutions. The human cost of the offensive is mounting. Gaza health officials say more than 11,300 people have been killed since October the 7th, when the Hamas militant group attacked Israel. The director of Gaza's largest hospital says the bodies of more than 120 patients have been buried in a mass grave in Al-Shifa's courtyard. He blames the lack of electricity for their deaths. Meanwhile, rockets fired from the Gaza Strip have struck a portside neighbourhood of Tel Aviv. At least 2 people have been injured. Earlier, the families of people kidnapped by Hamas last month marched through Tel Aviv, calling for their release. Israel says at least 240 people, including babies and children, are being held hostage in tunnels in the besieged territory. Hamas has freed 4 people.
Israeli forces said they had weakened 10 out of 24 Hamas battalions in the Gaza Strip, says the Institute for the Study of War. The IDF published a report explaining how it has been working to eliminate Hamas operatives and commanders in the field and senior level since the 7th of October. Now, the report says Hamas is comprised of 30,000 militia fighters in the Gaza Strip, which are divided into 5 regional brigades and 24 battalions. Each battalion is comprised of several strongholds and military outposts. The IDF said that its ground forces are fighting in the areas of several battalions and that they had assassinated 5 leaders with various roles in Hamas intelligence services, anti-armor units and special forces.
In Israel, amid the trauma of the October 7th massacre by Hamas and subsequent Israeli military offensive in Gaza, a silencing on dissenting voices has ensued. Palestinians say they fear being arrested if they're accused of having spoken out against the war, including liking or sharing messages on Facebook. Critical Israelis, including university lecturers, journalists, politicians, have been targeted for speaking out. Arab Israeli politician Aida Touma Suleiman, who has condemned Hamas's brutal attack on Israelis, says she's prevented from showing similar compassion to Palestinians in Gaza.
I don't have walks with my grandchildren anymore because I don't want anybody to know that they are my grandchildren. There's a huge incitement against anyone who dares to protest against this war or to even reveal a little bit of empathy toward what is happening in Gaza. We are not allowed even to cry for a Palestinian child who is killed there.
Last February, a task force designed to monitor hateful speech against the State of Israel was set up by National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir. And in recent weeks, the Israeli court system has upheld the remand of those accused of breaching the law. Judges say it's necessary given that the country is in a time of war. Amer Badran and Itamar Avneri are Palestinian and Jewish political allies who are working for a joint approach to tackle fear and hatred, which has gravely deteriorated between the two communities.
Both sides are afraid. Jews and Arabs are afraid, but Arabs are still being threatened. Many arrests are done to young people, and not only to young people, because of really nothing that they were doing on the social networks. a like that they put or a simple picture that they had, and they are immediately taken for terrorists or people that are supporters of Hamas.
Jewish people are very anxious, they fear, they are very, very afraid. There's a war in Gaza. People are also anxious, especially between Jews and Arabs. It's very natural, but we are trying to de-escalate it and to prevent violence to erupt.
An Israeli government official told Euronews that Israel does monitor incitement and investigates every case. Shona Murray, Euronews, Jerusalem.
The EU promised to provide 1 million rounds of ammunition to Kiev by next March, but so far only 30% of this target has been met. At a meeting of the bloc's defence ministers Tuesday in Brussels, concerns were raised that the EU will be unable to keep its promise.
Die Frage, ob 1 Million jemals realistisch war, wäre eigentlich die richtige. Es hat Stimmen gegeben, die gesagt haben, Vorsicht, 1 Million ist leicht zu beschließen, das Geld ist da, aber die Produktion muss da sein. Die mahnenden Stimmen haben jetzt leider recht. Wir haben mit unseren Rahmenverträgen einen großen Teil beigetragen und werden das auch weiter tun. Wir sind in Gesprächen mit der Rüstungsindustrie. Die Produktion muss hochgefahren und beschleunigt werden. Das ist das Gebot der Stunde.
Das heißt, Sie gehen davon aus, dass das Ziel nicht erreicht wird?
Die 1 Million werden nicht erreicht, davon muss man ausgehen.
So why is the EU unlikely to be able to deliver on its promise? One reason is that Europe has given as much as it can from its own stocks and now needs to produce more. According to some experts, taking into account that Ukraine's artillery uses around 45,000 shells per week, within 2 months the entire annual production of the European Union could be consumed. Funding is also a problem when it comes to increasing production.
Ένα από τα προβλήματα αυτά αφορά την αμυντική βιομηχανία, η οποία χρειάζεται να έχει μία διαβεβαίωση από τα κράτη ότι δεν θα επενδύσει άδικα, δεν θα επενδύσει πόρους για καινούργιες γραμμές παραγωγής και μετά από 2 χρόνια θα έρθουν τα κράτη-μέλη, οι κυβερνήσεις και θα τους πούνε δεν χρειαζόμαστε άλλα πυρομαχικά. Μπορεί οι μεγάλες βιομηχανίες να μπορούν να αντλήσουν χρηματοδότηση από τις διεθνείς αγορές ή να έχουν δικούς πόρους για να επενδύσουν, αλλά οι μικρότερες θα πρέπει να απευθυνθούν στα ευρωπαϊκά τραπεζικά ιδρύματα. Όμως οι ευρωπαϊκές τράπεζες δεν δανείζουν στις αμυντικές βιομηχανίες ως αποτέλεσμα του συστήματος taxonomy και του ότι έχουν χαρακτηριστεί ως non-sustainable οι αμυντικές βιομηχανίες.
There's also other problems, like the lack of skilled labour and suitable machinery. But Thierry Breton, the commissioner responsible for production capacity, is optimistic. He says that everything is now in the hands of EU countries.
L'objectif de produire plus d'1 million de munitions sur une base annuelle que nous avions pris et qu'il soit atteint à partir du printemps sera tenu. Maintenant, c'est aux États membres de passer les commandes.
The White House said on Friday that North Korea has delivered more than 1,000 containers of military equipment and munitions to Russia, meaning Europe and its allies must soon step up.
For more than 30 years, the identity of a body found floating in a river in the Belgian city of Antwerp has remained a mystery. This year, Interpol launched an operation to try to solve the puzzle by revealing details normally kept secret. In this case, it was a tattoo. It was recognised by a relative who identified her as 31-year-old Rita Roberts from Cardiff in the UK. She moved to Belgium in 1992. Operation Identify Me aims to put names to 22 women believed murdered in Belgium, Germany and the Netherlands over the past 50 years.
On a tour of Pas-de-Calais in northern France, President Emmanuel Macron has pledged 50 million euros to those devastated by several days of rains and floods. Another what he calls exceptional support fund for farmers will also be launched. But exhausted residents fear a new rise in waters.
Notre solidarité, notre soutien va se traduire dès cet après-midi par le classement de toutes les communes qui l'ont demandé en catastrophe naturelle. Évidemment, on va activer le dispositif qu'on a créé il y a maintenant quelques mois, calamité agricole, qui va permettre d'accompagner et de compenser.
French farmers believe infrastructure maintenance could have prevented flooding, and many of them have seen their fields transformed into vast expanses of water.
Aujourd'hui, 60% est sous l'eau. Des ponts, des bassins qui ne sont pas entretenus, des pompes qui sont des fois pas de capacité suffisante. Donc il faut revoir tout le système parce que nous sommes dans un arrière-pays, une zone qui a fortement changé, un climat qui a changé.
Pas-de-Calais prefect Jacques Bihan says 5,000 homes have been affected and 1,400 people have been evacuated since November 6. 4 people have suffered minor injuries. On World Diabetes Day, people are being urged to be aware of the risks of heart disease and how to respond. The link between the two conditions has long been known, but recent studies suggest even if you don't have diabetes, a slightly higher level of blood sugar increases the risk of coronary problems. Researchers in the UK also found that men are more likely to go undiagnosed and therefore not receive preventative medication. In the EU, more than 32 million people live with diabetes, a figure that has doubled in the past decade.
A ceremonial 41-gun salute honours Britain's King Charles III on his 75th birthday. The celebrations started on Monday when His Majesty hosted a tea party for others marking the same milestone. The King's birthday itinerary also includes the official launch of his Coronation Food Project. It aims to tackle poverty by redistributing millions of tonnes of food bound for landfill.